listen to me and kind of hear my story. So, so what happened was with me, I guess it was kind of like the untraditional route getting into PT school. I went to university, Sacred Heart University, and I graduated from there in 2016. When I was there, I was an athlete and stuff like that. So um, I really didn't, I don't want to say I didn't put a lot of effort into my schooling, but like I did. But, it's very competitive to get into PT school. So what I ended up doing was once I graduated from Sacred Heart, I went back to school after that. I took a couple more classes, really tried to improve my GPA. So I took a year doing that. And then the year following that, so 2017 was like the year I kind of spent taking my classes. So then 2018 is when I really went up and I kind of applied. And unfortunately, I didn't really get into anywhere. I got waitlisted by a couple of schools, but I got rejected by a few. But it was rough. But I knew this is something I wanted to do. After thinking long and hard about it, and I had a couple of really good mentors, Mike being one of them, Biagioli, and a couple other people at Princeton who really kind of told me not to give up, who really told me to really, keep trying and go after it. So what I did was I applied again, and this time I really made like a big effort. So I reached out to a couple of schools. I offered to, drive to the campuses, go visit. I tried to get my name out there. I really wanted to meet the administration, try to talk to some of the professors if I could. Really just try and make a name for myself, because even after I went back and I retook a couple of the classes, like my grades were better, but still, grades are just something you see on paper. So like my approach was really to go out there and really try and show these schools and these administrations and professors, like, I'm going to be a great physical therapist. Like, I have the drive, I have the determination, and this is something I really, really want to do with my life. And along with that, what I really liked about University of Sciences was I came here, I shadowed a class. Right off the bat, I knew I wanted to come here. So what happened was I had got waitlisted for here. So then I contacted the administration again. I'm like, look, like, this is the school I really want to go to. What can I do in order to help better my chances? So they said, okay, like, you can come back and sit in on a class if you want. So this is going to be the second time I went back, and I said, okay, awesome. So I went back, I sat in on a class. I really tried to, talk to the professors, really tried to make a name for myself. And then I found out a week later that I actually got accepted. So that was like a dream come true. So I finally got accepted in 2019 to go to PT school. And it was, like I said, literally a dream come true, because it's something I really wanted to do. It was a lot of hard work, and I knew in the long run it would all be worth it. So kind of go into detail about my first year. Definitely took some getting used to. A lot of hard work, but you just got to take it day by day. Assignment by assignment, test by test. You can't let yourself get too overwhelmed. Just kind of keep a tunnel vision, stay on that narrow path, and just go through it. And then, of course, COVID hit the end of last year, so we all went online. And from what Mike was telling me, you guys are all online now. So that took a little bit of getting used to. I'm sure you guys are kind of not exactly liking that too much. It kind of took a little bit of effort and a little bit of adjusting. So now here we are. I'm here in my second year at University of Sciences. Back living by campus. What we're doing this year, which I really like, is we kind of have like a rotation with the OT program. So what happens is we have online classes Monday, Tuesday, online classes Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then we go to class Thursday, Friday. We have hands-on labs, obviously, with we have to wear our masks, our gloves, and we're with the same 4 people all semester. And like they keep us with these same 6 people or same 4 people, and we work together so that way we limit our contact with everybody else. Like, we're all spaced out at least, I'm going to say probably 8 feet apart, if not more, to really keep that social distancing. We're with the same TAs in the rooms all semester, which is kind of nice. They're really doing a good job at limiting that. Obviously, entrances and exits are all marked, so nobody really crosses paths, which is great. And then what happens is we do that for 3 weeks, and then for 2 weeks, which is what we're in now, we just have all online classes, which isn't bad because you kind of get used to it, I guess, but it still doesn't beat, actually going and doing the hands-on stuff. So, and that's where I am right now. So, yeah.
Matt, thank you so much for that perspective. Mike Biagioli, the floor is yours, man. Now we're going to hear from his perspective on what exactly he's gone through with becoming a physical therapist. So just to give you guys some background, he was actually my physical therapist for when I tore my AC joint. And, when I tore it, it was a devastating blow for my rugby career because I love playing. And, I'm just so forever grateful that he took part in my rehab process, and he really helped me to elevate my strength even more. And, I'm just forever grateful for him, in our relationship. So Mike, floor is yours.
Hi everyone, how you doing? I'm Michael Biagioli. This is my 3rd year now as a physical therapist in an outpatient orthopedic setting. Primarily here at Princeton Orthopeadic Associates, we deal with a wide variety of orthopedic injuries from a wide variety of ages, ranging from 10 all the way up to 100. So we get a good population of injuries, some sports related, some from someone falling in the home or just slipping on ice in general. It could be a matter of anything, or some that just happen from unrelated causes that we can't put our finger on. But I started my career in physical therapy when I began undergrad at University of the Sciences in Philadelphia. I had originally come as pre-pharmacy or biochemistry, believe it or not, when I started there. And then I quickly realized that that wasn't for me. I didn't like how it wasn't hands-on, but I wanted to do something in healthcare. I had an innate need to help people. I had been an EMT since I was the age of 16 years old and just finished my last years at this past year. So that hung around on top of physical therapy. But I found early on I had a fascination with building up strength, seeing improvement, progress through my time in the gym, as well as that meeting the human anatomy and science and sound logic towards treatment approaches. So I did some shadowing at some of the local outpatient rehab centers, such as Kessler or NovaCare. By me, I live in Central Jersey, and I went south for it even, as well as a place in the Bronx. And I found the things I liked and didn't like about outpatient, but I still knew that physical therapy was something I should look further into. That caused me to do a 3-month summer internship at Health South Rehabilitation Center, where I got to work with more acute clients who are there for inpatient stays. And I got to really see the different facets to the profession. After that, I knew I had to get more involved in the program, so I joined my Student Physical Therapy Association at University of the Sciences, much like you guys have at Temple, except we're the SPTA at USP. And I got further involved in that and eventually graduated with a health science degree rather than a biochemistry degree. Reapplied for physical therapy school and got into physical therapy school at University of the Sciences. I had a good relationship with the department already in the program, so that really helped. Like Matt was saying, it was kind of unconventional for him. It was unconventional for me as well. And I proceeded from there. After I graduated, I had my 4 clinicals. 1 was acute care, 3 were outpatient orthopedics. Can you guess what I was into? And I applied for outpatient orthopedic jobs. The first interview I went on was Princeton Orthopeadic Associates. So when you go on an interview, sometimes you get a vibe about a place if you like it or not, or if it's the right fit for you. And after having my 3 outpatient clinicals and meeting the staff here and the other clinicians and seeing what the mission was with the therapy department here, I kind of knew that this was a good fit for me. So all the stars aligned and I wound up getting the job, and I've been working here since. But a suggestion, if you do like become a physical therapist, keep the other sides of the profession alive. Like I said, the career is multifaceted, meaning there's orthopedics, there's cardiopulm, there's a neurological population, there's spinal cord injury, there's pediatrics, geriatrics, oncology, the list goes on. I chose to work per diem also at Robert Wood Johnson, and I continue that job to this day just to keep my inpatient skill set alive. That's basically where I'm at now in my career. With the COVID, it's making it tough to do continuing education courses and hands-on courses. So we're gonna have to do a lot of online-based learning, which for PT, I feel isn't the best way, because most of our work is hands-on and through tactile cueing, verbal cueing, and not as much didactic, as much as that is important to build up your knowledge base so you know that the treatments you're using are evidence-based and sound practices. That's really all I have to say, Mike.
Guys, thank you so much. Now we'd like to transition into a Q&A. Who's going to be the brave soul that asks the first question? Yeah, who's up for it? Feel free to unmute yourself. And
Hi, I'm Anya Tully. I know I don't have my camera on. I was just wondering what your suggestions are for shadowing, like during COVID. Like how can we get opportunities? Because I'm now a junior health professions major and I haven't had an opportunity to shadow.
That's a great question. A lot of places that are open, I would look for a larger healthcare group or a larger chain. I wouldn't go looking for a smaller personal clinic or somewhere that was just open like a private practice that has maybe one location. I would look for a larger group, maybe start with acute care, because they might be taking more students or having more opportunities like this because they have a higher patient volume and they might be willing to let volunteers come in. But don't be afraid to ask, send out emails, be aggressive, look at places in the area and try to find out who the therapy manager is, make some phone calls, and just try your best to get in for some shadowing hours. I know there were people trying to get in here for shadowing hours, but they kind of got straight away by the COVID crisis, but they'll be back soon, I'm pretty sure. In the next few months, I'll have someone shadowing me. Does that help at all?
Yes, thank you.
I actually had a question for Matt. So Matt, we have to give these guys some perspective here because, if I were to pull up a dictionary right now, truthfully, you'd be the definition of hard work, and, just like from like working with you personally, like I requested to stay, with you because I've like learned a lot and like you're just a great role model. So I just want everybody to just know that right now. But going off of that, how do you guys maintain balance so that you guys don't go stir crazy with like being overwhelmed with all these courses?
I really appreciate you saying that, Mike. I really do. With school, like I said before, you really just kind of have to just try your best not to get overwhelmed. Like it may seem stressful and it can seem stressful, but you really just kind of have to break it down. And like what I like to do is I have my calendar. Actually, I have two calendars. I have one with my assignments and one with my exams on it. So what I do is I just kind of take it day by day. And what I do is I have my own little setting, like my own little kind of setup for like my assignments. I kind of give myself a 2-week window. So like from this week and 2 weeks out, that's the only blocks I'll look at. The exam one is obviously a little bit different just because I'd like to know what all my exams are. But for my assignments, I kind of keep that 2-block window, maybe 3 blocks, depending if I know I have a lot coming up. Just because like if you have it all out there on a calendar, it does look very overwhelming. So like for me, it's just one of those things. It's like a little trick that kind of helps me stay a little bit on course, don't get stressed. Another thing is with me, it's really big to take breaks. So like I'll be studying and I know like I'll set an alarm. And I know like once that hour and 30-minute mark hits, I have to take a break. I'll take like maybe a 10, 15-minute break, just to kind of relax, take a couple of deep breaths. I'll go do something else. Like maybe I'll make dinner or I'll go out for a walk or I'll do something just to kind of get my mind out of the school zone for a little bit and kind of get back to reality. And then what I'll do is I'll go back to it, because last year I kind of made the mistake of really getting myself overwhelmed and just sitting there and studying and studying and studying and studying, taking no breaks, no time for myself. And it actually kind of like affected my grades a little bit. I mean, I still did very well last year, but I kind of had to just really kind of refocus myself and change up all my studying strategies in order to become more successful and to kind of stay on track. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, going off of that, what are some of the best study strategies that have worked best for you? And Mike, you can even interject here as well. How about Matt goes first?
So for me, and like, I don't know if this really works for everybody else, because everybody kind of has their own thing that they like to do. But for me, I like to try and review my notes right after class, if I have the opportunity, or at least that same day, at least read through them one time. And then what I'll do is usually on the weekend, I'll go through them again. And then like, say I have like an exam coming up, I'll kind of actually make like little study blocks throughout the day. Like I'll have my schedule written out and I'll make little study blocks throughout the day. And then I'll go through my notes, and like I'll have like certain classes I like to rewrite my notes, as opposed to other classes where I'll go through and I'll watch, because our teachers post like the lectures now, like the Zoom recordings. So I'll go through and I'll watch the Zoom recordings again. I'll take a couple notes down on that if I missed anything. All our classes, for the most part, give us PowerPoints to go off of too, which is really nice. So you're not sitting there to kind of struggle to write, everything down that your professor's saying. So that's always good. But to be honest with you, to kind of sum everything up, it really depends on the class. And again, time management is huge with PT school. That's if I can give advice to anybody going into PT school, time management is big, because you really have to know how to, get all your work done, be able to study, but at the same time, everybody needs that me time to be able to do stuff that they enjoy. Otherwise, you would just go crazy.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, what are some good PT clinics or PT hospitals like that people could volunteer at or like shadow at in Philly?
Moss Rehab is definitely one for spinal cord. Moss Rehab is definitely a good place to go for spinal cord injury. McGee Rehab as well, if you want to write that down.
Okay.
Also, Penn Partners, Good Shepherd Penn Partners. Those are three good places that you might want to take a look at.
Okay, thank you.
I was just going to say the same thing, Mike. Perfect.
I don't know if any of you guys went through the interview process and like if that was required to get into PT school. But if you did, what interview tips do you have just to like hopefully like succeed in the interview, and then so that way like you don't really go in there clueless, at least.
So for me, it's gonna sound really cliche, but I went in there and I was just myself. Like I really went in there. I'm a pretty chipper, like happy-go-lucky individual. Like I'm gonna say 99% of the time. So I just went in there. I was myself. Whenever they asked me the questions, whatever it was, I answered it with my honest answer, and I gave a reason for why I answered the question the way I did. I explained myself as much as I could. I really just tried to kind of, like I said before, I really just kind of tried to make myself known, make myself kind of stick out. But, one of the things that I was told from somebody going into an interview was always make good eye contact, have a smile on your face, and make sure to say please and thank you. There's like the big couple things, I would say.
All right, thank you. I appreciate the advice.
Of course.
Yeah, I had a question going back to like observation hours. Like somebody said before, it's like really hard right now trying to figure out like where we can volunteer at because of COVID. But I was just curious, would you recommend either, because I know a lot of people have contradicting like views about hours, like would you rather like have like more like diverse hours, say like at orthopedics, like neuro, all of that, and have less hours, say like 10 hours at each like different one, so totally 50, or like 50 hours at one place? Like what do you think like your like what do you think would be recommended for it to be more like to stand out more during like your interviews, if that makes sense?
No, it makes sense. I would recommend that if you do start off by doing even hours, maybe do a few hours at one place and then do a few hours at a different setting and a few hours at a different setting, sort of an even amount. But then when you find the place that you like the most, try to get more involved in that, because then it shows that you had a passion towards one of them more than the other. And that even though it may not be evenly distributed, it showed that you committed and you had full passion towards one. And that might really stand out about you.
Thank you. That does make a lot of sense.
I remember when I was applying a couple years ago, some schools did ask if you had inpatient and outpatient settings. Not all of them, but some did. And plus, kind of going off what Mike said, I did a couple of inpatient hours. I had, I think, maybe 50. Not very many. And then I actually worked where Mike is now at Princeton Orthopeadics, and I did some hours in shadowing there. And then I just kind of stayed there. I just really liked orthopedics. I really liked outpatient. Like I said, my background, I've been an athlete all my life, wrestled in college. So it was kind of one of those things where I kind of found what I loved and I stayed there. And even to this day, I do like outpatient. I think now more so, like going through school, I kind of want to work more with the geriatric population and outpatient, more so that'd be joint replacement, fall risk, stuff like that. But that could all change. I still have another year and a half of school left and I don't have any clinicals, so we'll see. But long story short, I just remember that some schools ask, oh, did you have inpatient? Did you have outpatient? And I don't know if have you guys set up, is PTCast, is that still the application portal that you guys use? So I would take a look at that and maybe, see if they have anything on there. I think when I did it, they had an inpatient, outpatient. You had to separate your hours in between, you know what I mean? How many outpatient did you do? How many inpatient did you do?
Gotcha. Because I'm still a sophomore, so like I don't want to say I'm luckier, but like I'm not in that situation like where I'm a junior and I'm going to be applying like in a couple months. So I was just wondering to get some like kind of ideas like when the time comes for me to start like getting my hours together.
Yeah, I know I started my hours when it was the winter break between sophomore and junior year of college.
Gotcha. Yeah,
I would start sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
So it would be good time to get at it.
Thank you.
Of course.
Welcome.
Hi, I actually had a question. So I'm currently still trying to decide if I want to go into athletic training or physical therapy. Do you guys have any like recommendations on how to decide maybe, or just like the difference that I might want to look at?
Well, if you want to go into physical therapy, you're going to be dealing more with clients' rehabilitation, meaning post-injury, where athletic training focuses on more what's called habilitative injury, habilitative services, which is a non-injured subject, and you're working with more higher functioning individuals who just want to improve performance rather than return to a prior level of function, as well as improve performance. So that ultimately is up to you. If you want to work with people who have sustained injuries or have had congenital disorders, physical therapy might be the answer for you. But if you want to work with an athlete who is trying to take themselves to the next level, you might want to go with athletic training.
Thank you.
Does that help?
Yeah, thank you so much.
I have another question. It's Anya again. It was recommended to me to get a job as a physical therapist assistant right out of undergrad and try and find a job that pays for grad school. Do you recommend that, or does that seem like a lot on one's plate?
That sounds like a lot. Of physical therapy assistant job is another, I think it's 2 to 3 years of school as well. And that's a pretty large amount to put on your plate in addition to college. What do you think, Matt?
Anya, did you mean physical therapy aide or physical therapy assistant, like a tech?
Physical therapy assistant, that's the term that was used.
Okay, so yeah.
Just like as advice on how to pay for PT school. That's what was suggested to me.
Yeah, see, that's I don't know much about that, to be honest with you, to being an assistant, because like Mike said, I'm pretty sure you have to go. for another couple of years, correct, Mike, to be a
You have to
PTA?
go for another couple of years, and you have to take a national board exam as well. So it's not a cakewalk by any means, and it's going to cost a fair amount of money for PTA school. So I think they might have meant an aid to help pay for PT school, because then you could get like your shadowing experience, get like experience with like talking to PTs, working in that environment, and making some money. They might have meant an aide or a technician, but an assistant that's another few years of school and a national exam to get licensed.
Okay, that makes sense. But to go off that, do you guys have any advice on how to pay for grad school?
So that's actually a really good question. It's, I mean, I'll be honest with you. The way that University of Sciences is kind of laid out is you have your gross anatomy, which is like your incoming summer per se. And then from there you have your first year of schooling, and then you have that summer off. So like what I tried to do is that summer off, I really just worked as hard as I could in order to save up as much money as I could. And then also keep in mind, I kind of had like 3 years to save up money to kind of help me pay for school. But I know that a lot of my friends, we all have to take out loans. Unfortunately, PT school is not the cheapest, but it's one of those things where you do it because you love it, and then you'll eventually pay it back in the end. If that makes any sense. I hope that didn't sound kind of tacky or cliche.
No, it didn't. Thank you.
No, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so like, is it feasible to get a job during PT school? Like, is there going to be time for that? Like, how would that work?
If you find the right job, it can be definitely feasible to hold one down. But a lot of my friends during PT school, they had more of what's called a per diem based job. So it might be something on the weekends or something that just pays a large amount lump sum. Like when I was in PT school, I taught CPR classes here and there, and it paid $400 for a day of labor. So it was really beneficial for me to have that hookup. So you want to find like something like that. But if you were to have a job as 5 nights a week as a waiter, yeah, it's doable. But if you're working for 5 hours a night, that's 5 hours of study time that's going to be taken away, and possibly like a couple hours of like time that you could be getting your mental health in order or meeting with people for something. And also you have things at night sometimes. Sometimes you have pro bono work you have to do in the clinic, or you have a function that's mandatory from the school itself. So if you could find a gig that kind of, like I said, is a gig, it's not on like a regular basis or routine, and it pays a decent amount, that is, I think, the best way to go for during the semester if you want to make some money during PT school.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
I know a lot of students here, I'm not going to say a lot, but I know a decent amount that are in my program. What they do is they contacted the school, and what they do is they get work study. So they have like work study jobs. So again, I mean, it really all depends on time management and like how you are with time management. So like they're pretty good, I would say. So like they have their work study jobs, like they work in the gym, or they do like jobs around campus, maybe 4 hours a week. Some maybe 6. And then it's not, you're not going to make a lot of money. It's not going to, it's more so to kind of help offset the cost of living, I would say, than it is to help pay for tuition. And then I know, I'm going to say 3. Yeah, I know 3 girls. They on Saturday mornings, they go and they just work as PT8s at a local place. So that's what they do. Because like PT school, it's a lot of work. I mean, like I said, if you're good at time management, then that's awesome. Me personally, I don't know if I'd be able to do that, just because that's just me. But then again, you and I are 2 completely different people. But if you think you're able to handle it, then I don't see there's anything wrong with it. But just you got to keep in mind, you don't want to overload yourself too much. If that makes any sense.
I actually had a question about the post-rehabilitation stage. Where do you guys refer your patients after you're done with physical therapy? So do you refer them to CSCS, certified strength and conditioning coaches, or is there what's the process like?
Well, ultimately, it all depends on your catering every person's very different. So you can't treat by a wide variety of people. You have to treat by the individual. If I have someone who's 44 years old and they're right in the range where they could get an ACL reconstruction after tearing their ACL, I might have them for 3 to 4 months of rehab as opposed to 6 to 7 for a high school or college kid who's an athlete. So I might not refer them to anyone. I might give them a good discharge program that has a weekly strength and conditioning program that they can continue. If it's, say, like someone like in their 40s who's not athletic, more sedentary. Or I might refer them to a local gym where I know there's good trainers if it is someone that does need athletic coaching or conditioning. So it really varies on the client.
So just to pick your part a little bit, Mike, what's your definition of like a good gym, and what do you consider like good trainers? Like, what do you personally look for, and how can coaches like gain the trust of a physical therapist?
Well, I think what we have to realize is like, one thing is you got to get off your high horse. You have to respect all professions for what they do, you know, and you just have to hope if you're discharging a patient who's ready to be discharged, that they're ready. If I was discharging someone who tore their ACL and they wanted to get back to football and they were like 6-7 months post-op and they were done with their course of therapy, I would hope that they would consult first their strength and conditioning coach at their school, whoever they're applying for. But I would want them to go to someone who has certifications geared towards the sport they're playing and isn't just someone that is working at your local gym and just like, you know, passed a conditioning course, because that's something that's important to them. So you'd want to get them to someone who actually has a good knowledge, strong knowledge base on evidence-based strength and conditioning towards return to sport in football. But at the same time, I'd make sure that their injury was settled, like, and they weren't going to do any further damage if they went to someone that I would make sure they were educated on what their limitations were at 6 months or 9 months. I guess that's the best way to put it. And you kind of hope that at that point they completed their rehabilitation. They got to fly the coop sometime. Usually, I don't suggest that a person returns to like football, like if they had an ACL full-on reconstruction 9 months to a year out, and that they're wearing the sport brace with it typically. But sometimes in the NFL, you'll see them coming back at 6 months, but that's the NFL where it's their profession and they're being paid for it. So NFL pretty much owns the rights to their body. But so it all varies based on the patient you're dealing with.
I guess like going off of like the hardship of the NFL, like how concerned are you guys for these athletes that are like going through the season right now? Like, how do you think we can personally learn from like the mistakes that have been made through, you know, making this NFL season happen? Like,
That's a good question, because I kind of see both sides of what you're saying. Because at the same time, they kind of, in my personal opinion, they kind of rushed back into the season. Like they didn't really have all the necessary, you know, training, and they didn't have like the preseason like they normally do, and all that kind of stuff to get them more sport specified. You know what I'm saying? Before they go back to actually playing full-on games. But at the same time, you have to keep in mind that it is the NFL. It is a business. So they kind of had to do what they had to do in order to, you know, make money. So I kind of see both sides of the argument in that case. I do think it could have been pushed back maybe a week or two, just to kind of have the players get back at more accommodated, get a couple of, you know, team workouts in more than they already did. Because I'm pretty sure what they have only 2 weeks of private team workouts, as opposed to, you know, mini camp and training camp, then the 4 weeks of preseason games, which, you know, that's a whole nother topic, whether people believe preseason games are good or bad. But like I said, I kind of see both ends of the spectrum. So that's my opinion on that.
I just think getting back to rehabilitation with the NFL, a lot of the times they rush these players back before they're ready. I mean, sometimes they are high functioning athletes, so they can work with it, and they do have the best trainers, the best therapists, the best people working on them, the best surgeons performing their surgeries. So they have that on their side, but at the same time, they have the pressure knowing that if they don't rehab and thrive, they're going to get cut next season. So that's why they're kind of often forced back to the game, and it subjects them to the high possibility of re-injury or issues down the road for that matter.
Yeah, and I can imagine like the immense amount of pressure that these professionals have in order to meet the demands of, you know, the player and the coach, because they want to play, they want to make money, they want to win, right? So like, what advice would you give for like, you know, PTs or athletic trainers with like, you know, getting them to buy into the process of like trusting the rehab process and basically trusting the process, as people in Philadelphia love to say all the time?
So kind of with me, I mean, you guys both know I do like my research articles. It's all on paper. I mean, that's really all I have to say about that. I mean, short and simple. It's all research kind of backs it up. That's really all I can say to that. There's so much research out there on stuff like this. So, Mike.
Yeah, basically, it does speak for itself. There have been numerous studies showing about early return to sport and the risk of re-injury. And like Matt says, the research speaks for itself ultimately. And we're not going to change a organization like the NFL or anything because money is money. But
Yeah,
as
I
far
think. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No, go on. What were you gonna say?
I thought you were done. I'm so sorry.
No.
Yeah, like a prominent case would be like maybe like last year. I don't know if you guys are into the NBA or not, but Kevin Durant getting injured mid-season, and then they forced his injury back, and then the following game he actually tore his Achilles, and then it just kept him out for a whole nother year. So I think that's like I guess that's like another clear-cut example of where the organization needs you to basically get that championship. At the same time, you have to balance that with a recovery and allowing the health to like restore. And then I think they learned that. And then I don't know if you guys are familiar with Klay Thompson. He also tore his ACL in that final series, and they actually kept him out for about like 400 days. So he's about like a year and like almost like a half, and he actually just started practicing after a year and a half. So I think they learned from the Kevin Durant injury. So I'm thinking like from here on out, I think like players and organizations are starting to understand that like there's more risk to their potential careers and also more risk to the franchise themselves.
That's a great example. I didn't really follow the NBA, but that's solid proof right there. Even very good. Yeah.
I guess like what would be really good, you know, for professionals to do like yourselves, like, you know, just like yes, there's like, you know, a lot of research out, but the question is like, do people actually read it? I guess people don't. I don't know if they do, but my guess would be that a lot of them, you know, kind of like brush off the research and they just say like, well, we don't really care about it, or they just say, well, you know, it's not really important to me. So I mean, like, maybe what would be like a good strategy for the people that aren't able to understand the research, do you think?
Well,
yeah, Mike.
oh, sorry. I think also majority of the people, it's only the 0.00001% that are these professional athletes. And it's a very small population you're dealing with. But what we could do as professionals working in these type of environments, even if it's with collegiate athletes or high school athletes, it's our job to educate them on this stuff because they're not being paid to do it. They're doing it because they want to. They have a different goal in this. They want to just be the best for the sake of being the best most of the time. Sometimes they want scholarship or eventually to be professional, but if you educate them when they're younger or educate them when they're at a spot where it's not life or death for them, that's how you're going to make the most impact by individual, because then it pertains to them.
Yeah, and then going off what Mike said, one of the big things that we learned about in school is patient education. And I mean, like some examples are somebody who just had a stroke. You have to teach them, how to roll over in bed, how to get up, how to sit up on the side of the bed, how to go from sit to stand, like things we kind of take advantage of every day. Like you kind of have to educate the patients on how to do this because eventually you're not going to be with them every day. Like they're going to have to go home and they're going to have to do this. So you have to educate them on how to do it. And then on the other hand, like outpatient, I know that when I went to PT for the first time, I had no idea because the first time I ever went to PT, I was real young and I had 2 stress fractures in my back, and I had no idea what that was. I mean, the doctor tells you have 2 stress fractures. I mean, okay, like is my spine broken? So again, when I went to PT, that's kind of the physical therapist is really the one that kind of put that in perspective for me. So again, it's kind of taking that they take that professional jargon and kind of turn it into everyday people terms as well. And like you guys will learn that once you get to school, like education is everything. It's more than just a hands-on profession, but it's actually teaching, the population about what they have to do in order to complete their daily tasks or to become successful with the rehabilitation process.
I don't know if I'm just like in my like perspective. So like my dad was like a quarterback in high school, and he was always the type of guy that like never listened to his athletic trainers. Like anytime he got injured, it was kind of just, he was like, well, I'm a man kind of thing. Like I don't need to sit out. Like this is my game. Like I know you guys have all dealt with these kind of people. And of course, me wanting to be a PT now, like he kind of drove me to wanting to like kind of like educate people and be like, you know what, like people, especially I find, I don't know if the stigma also like with the NFL, because the NFL is all male players, like do you guys deal with like that stigma of like men like having to believe that like they have to fight through their injuries and they don't need to seek like medical care or like physical or therapy in general? Because I remember reading an article last year I did for my class, my public health class, that I found that more females will go to hospitals and seek out medical care if they ever feel symptoms or something, whereas males are less likely and just think that they can deal with it by themselves. Like what are your like tips of like kind of dealing with people like that, and also like how have you dealt with people such as that in your field so far?
I mean, I don't know much about your research article. I'd like to look it up and actually see it, but I could definitely believe that. Considering the fact, I mean, like I said, I played a sport in college and I kind of was that stigma.
Yeah, I was.
It kind of hurt me in the long run. Because what happened was I was wrestling we were competing against Boston University and I dislocated my shoulder. It was a subluxation, so it did go back in with a little bit of luck. But I probably should have forfeited the match, and I didn't. And I kept wrestling the rest of that whole year. And then my shoulder kept getting worse and worse and worse. And even up until probably about a year and a half ago, I didn't have full range of motion. I mean, now I'm doing pretty well. Like I said, I had Mike at Biagioli at Princeton who helped me out. A couple other therapists helped me out there. But that all could have been avoided if I just, if I just did what I was supposed to do and just kind of forfeited the match and just kind of went and saw a doctor. I would not be having problems 5 years, 6 years later. So, but at the same time, this is like I said, I was an athlete. This is like athlete Matt talking now. Like it's like one of those things. Like if I knew what's the saying? If I knew what I knew now, I wouldn't do it then. Something like that. But yeah, so.
100% relate to that. My athletic I had major sprained ankles. I had like 10 in high school, and I would just keep getting my ankles wrapped and wrapped and wrapped because I had my dad's mentality of I'm not like a wuss, like I need to keep playing, like my team needs me kind of thing. And I never broke it, ironically, but I hurt it so bad that I like tore all the ligaments in my ankle at the end, like fluid buildup, blood, like everything, and it was just bad. And that kind of like put everything into perspective. And they were like, he was calling me a hypocrite because I wanted to be a PT, but then I was the one person who wouldn't listen to therapists. So I completely agree with you and like relate to you how like being an athlete like back in the day, now having a different like perspective on it.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. What about you, Biagioli? Anything on that?
Well, honestly, I actually have to agree with her. From what I've seen in the clinic, most of the time, it is typically male, ages 30 to 60 years old, sometimes older, that are typically more reluctant to have therapy. But what I do is I just give them the cold hard facts usually about the injury, what it could lead to, the potential damage it could do. And if they don't believe me or don't believe what I'm saying, then it's unfortunate. But you just have to, this ties back into education. You have to educate the patient on what it could mean for them down the road and what it means for them right now, how it's going to affect their daily life and affect the activities that are important to them. And that's ultimately the best way to do it. Just give them the cold hard facts, tell them everything you're going to do to help it improve, tell them what they may need to do to improve it, and hope that they take your advice.
Definitely, thank you.
So we keep talking about like the research is like imperative to, read up on, the education is important and everything like that. What are some of the research articles or research outlets that you guys personally use to educate yourselves? Like, what would you recommend for everybody on this call?
I would say if you do join, you could join the APTA as a student member, and there's multitude of different journals from the APTA. There's a neuro journal, there's a cardiopulm journal, there's JOSPT, which is the Journal of Orthopedic and Sports Physical Therapy, which is the one I recommend for anyone thinking about going into orthopedics. But there is a discounted rate for students, so I would take advantage of that while I'm a student and part of a PT club, because that's one of the things unfortunate when you get out of school. The APTA membership like skyrockets for non-students, which I think they need to work on, because that's how they're losing members ultimately. The American Physical Therapy Association, the membership dues are ridiculous, and the body doesn't do so much for licensure or accreditation or anything as much. So I would definitely recommend, though, joining the APTA as a student and searching some of the journals, because you have an option to sign up for various journals that they offer, and they're all very good.
Yeah, like Mike said, the APTA student membership is awesome. I use that quite a bit because everything on there specifically relates to physical therapy, as opposed to sometimes like if you're going on, say, PubMed or Google Scholar or something like that, you kind of get these articles that are just kind of, I don't want to say extreme, but they're a little bit harder to relate to physical therapy, if that makes any sense. So, but me personally, I like using all the resources the APTA has, the APTA provides me. A lot of good databases to use. And between that and some of the stuff that our school offers here, some of the databases they offer, that's when I have to do my assignments and we need research articles and papers and stuff like that. Those are the databases and sources I usually go to use.
And I just want to go back to what I say. Not that the APTA isn't a great organization. They do a lot of lobbying for us. They host a combined section meeting, and they're responsible for a lot of our research and raising our prestige as a profession. But I was just trying to make the point that they should put the research out there a little bit more for the professionals, so we can be greater as a professional rather than adding to the costs of school on top of that. So that's all.
It's definitely understandable. I mean, I have no idea what the depths are. I believe it's like substantial, right? Like the amount of like the risk. I mean, you're like giving up a lot in order to become physical therapist. But I guess what you guys were alluding to earlier is like, you're making a sacrifice because you love what you do. So like, what are some of the lessons that like you guys have learned so far through going through the journey of physical therapy, and like how has that made you guys into who you are today?
So with me, the one thing I guess I've learned from, working at Princeton and, coming here to school is you got to be like a sponge. You got to be open to like absorbing everything, whether it's right or wrong, whatever. You just have to be able to know. You just got to be able to listen. And if you question it, then you could always go back later and, try and find evidence to see if what the person was saying was right or wrong. But the one big thing is you just got to be open and you have to be willing to learn. You got to be willing to try new things. Like one of the big things was neuro this year. We're taking neuro class this year. And I never for the life of me thought I would like neuro. Like I already kind of went into it with the mentality that I was like, oh man, it's gonna be horrible. I'm not gonna like it. But it actually turns out I'm actually really enjoying it. I'm learning a lot. So it's kind of one of those things you just have to be open. You have to kind of take everything that's thrown at you and just absorb it. And like I said, if you have any questions about anything, like if you're in a clinic or something like that, I know Mike Biagioli has told me before. I asked him a question and then he told me to go look it up. So I mean that's kind of good for me too, because it kind of helps me learn, which I really like. I mean learning is huge. I can't stress that enough. Just really be open to what other people are saying and just kind of, yeah, I guess just enjoy it.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Do you specialize in in a sort of physical therapy session? So it's like, like maybe focus on pediatrics or focus on like old people, like, is there like in separate education for that, or like how does that work?
Well,
Yeah, Mike.
okay. So if you're trying to specialize in a specific area, you want to work in an environment specialized towards that area. But ultimately, when you get your physical therapy license, you can work in any setting you would like to that is covered under the license of being a physical therapist. And ultimately, it helps if you do have clinical experience in that setting, because then it shows you have a passion and a little bit of a knowledge base for it. But otherwise, you can get specialized as you continue to proceed working in a different setting, but ultimately you don't need a separate license for it if that's what you're asking.
Okay, thanks.
All right, guys. Any last minute questions? Feel free to interject. Any last minute questions at all? Once, twice. All right. I guess we're gonna wrap it up for tonight. So, guys, we hit 47 people on this call. 47 people. That is extraordinary. It's amazing. Like that. This just goes to show you guys how committed and dedicated you guys are to learning. Just like Matt was saying earlier, right? Through this time, it's like really tough, right? With COVID-19 and this pandemic, like we all want to be in person, right? Like these masks are creating a barrier, and COVID-19 has really taught us that we just have to make the best out of every situation, such as going on these calls to talk to great professionals such as Mike Biagioli and Matt Herbert. So I just wanted to say to all of you, thank you for coming on this call. So on behalf of the Pre-Physical Therapy Association through Temple University and the Exercise and Sports Science Association, we just wanted to say thank you for coming on. This video will be sent out to all of you, and it will be on our YouTube channel, the Temple University Exercise and Sports Science Association. So if you guys ever want to check up on this call again, just to relive the memories, feel free to check it out. All right, sound good? Let's get this gallery view just to show everybody the numbers. Like, this is crazy.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you enough.
Yes, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
All right, guys, have a great night, okay?
Thank you.